Greetings. Well, it's been a while since I've been on making a video, but I'm trying to keep my word and follow along with my YouTube pagan challenge of my ABCs of paganism. And it just coincidentally became up to the letter F, which I really had nothing to really talk about F. But I had a couple questions, and I also had a couple experiences that gave me the idea for today's topic, and that is finding the magic. Finding the magic, because I'm going to talk about that in two different ways. I've had rather a magical week, you might say. I just went yesterday to Los Angeles with my husband to the LA Opera, to the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion to see Rigoletto, which, if you're a fan of an opera, it was quite the magical experience. It was lovely. It was just lovely. It transfixed us. I spent today, earlier in the day, out in the garden, enjoying the beautiful, beautiful spring weather that we're having right now. Not too hot. It's just nice and in the 70s, just that perfect temperature that we love so much here in Southern California. Removing some suckers from the tomatoes, and I really do love to be in the garden. And I see you want to be in the garden too. Excuse me, Louis, you're going to have to wait. Louis is very fond of a family of lizards that he found out there in a pile of pavers that my husband's been working with. And he thinks it's his job to guard them. You're going to have to wait a little while. You have to wait just a little while. He's watching him out the window here, and he's like, I want to be out there and see my lizards. Anyway, finding the magic. I said this was a magical week, but always is magical in the garden for me. But also, I had a lovely experience earlier in the week. I didn't have time to talk about it with our friend Kelly. Got a phone call from her that a neighbor of hers had found a fledgling crow, I believe, in the park near her, and thought it needed some help. So she had this fledgling crow at her home in San Clemente, and she wanted us to come down and take a look. She wasn't sure what to do with the crow. So we went down, and he was young. He was still young, but we were concerned. We wanted to try to get him back with his crow people as soon as we could, if it was possible. So we were watching him. She was feeding him. He seemed nice and strong. He took a few short flights. Didn't really get much lift, but he, like a swooping thing. But he was able to move his wings. There was some question about the one wing we were a little worried about. Should have been worried about. It looked like he was going to be able to use it. Anyway, she determined, it was her decision. She determined that we were going to take it over to the park together. The three of us, Kelly and my husband and I, would take this little crow, this little fledgling, over to where he was found and see what happened, to see if there were other crows around there, to see what his reaction was, to see if he could go off and join his crow people. If not, she was just going to take him back home, be prepared to take him back home until he was a little stronger. Okay, so we went over to this park and let him out of his little box, and he was walking all around the grass there, and we didn't see any crows anywhere, but we let him out of the box, and we were watching him walk around the little grass, and all of a sudden he gave a little cry, and within a minute, I don't know, very quickly, one crow appeared and called. The little bird called out again. The bird in the air gave some more calls. Within just minutes, I think my husband counted 8 adult crows, right in the immediate area, circling the area, going into the trees nearby, calling down to this little crow, who was answering back. We sat and watched the little crow go where they were telling him to go. They went over to one tree, they were calling him over to that tree, and he went as fast as his little legs could take him, walking over to the tree. And ended up taking shelter. There was bushes underneath where he could find some shelter. Now, this is what has happened before. If you were following the story with me and Little Bird, not my original bird, but Little Bird, who I found as a baby in the neighbor's yard next door, when we put him back out, the crows did the exact same thing. He wasn't ready to fly yet, but he really needed the companionship of his crows. We were worried about keeping him longer in captivity. So we had taken him out and let him near the vicinity where we found him, and the crows came and directed him, told him exactly where to go, which he did the exact same thing. So anyway, Callie was very excited and we were all just, you know, it gives you chills to see it happening. These crows, you know, you think of them as just birds, just see them how they work together as a team, you know, as a community. They're the village raising that little crow, my child, and so okay, Louie, just a minute. So she determined that he was okay. She was going to leave him, and she did go back the following day, and I think maybe that evening she went back, I'm not sure. And the following day, once or twice. She'd been back several times since, I think. No sign of him. So it was really good. She was satisfied that he had gone, that he probably had gotten up enough strength to fly at least up into a lower trees, which is what happened with Bird when we had Bird. You just get them up into even a low tree, and they're good, and then they can climb around in the tree really well until they get enough strength to fly, and their wings, enough tail feathers, etc. Whatever. Anyway, the point that I wanted to make about this, while we were sitting there, we could not. Now, I did not make a video of this. She mentioned it, and I had my phone with me, and I did turn on my phone to see. I tried a couple of times, and my phone kept shutting off, and then I thought it was stealing the magic away from the experience. Me trying to get it on an electronic device using my phone just took the magic right away from it for me. So we just sat there, the three of us, and just shared this experience together, and it was really moving. It was a very moving experience, and but what I want to say about that was, how many people, while that little crow was running around and trying to find its way, and the adult crows were overhead and calling to it, and it was pretty busy, you know, pretty lot of busyness going on with these crows. And how many people just came into the park or walked past, you know, with children or whatever, looking here, they're walking, a lot of them, this is what we see, you know, they're looking down here as they're walking, or they're just walking with their head somewhere else, not noticing anything. And the funny part is they're in a park. You think in the park they would notice the birds, they would notice the, you know, but no, they notice nothing. They just are very detached from the magic that is around them. I want to remind you, when we first talked about how I found Bird in the first place, or by the way, Bird found me, I have to remind you, came to my door and pounded on my door. But also Little Bird, how I came upon Little Bird, and how Kelly and her friend came upon this bird, Magick, she called him, Magick, is by opening their eyes, opening your eyes, opening your ears, right? Listening to the sounds around you, looking around you, you know, smelling the smells, feeling the feels, right? That's how you start to feel the magic, feeling the magic, feeling the energies, noticing some things. And this is the first part of this topic, finding the magic, that I want to talk to you about, having to do with this. I saw an article, a blog post written on the internet not too terribly long ago, which sort of caught my eye, because it says, "Are you a magical natural? 11 signs that you have inherited inherent magical abilities. Well, first of all, that I stopped. I put my put the brakes on and had to get another look at this, because when it says 11 signs that you have inherent magical abilities, it sort of implies that there are people who do not have inherent magical abilities. And I don't like to say that. I think everybody has the potential to develop magical abilities. But I want to say that not everybody's magical abilities are going to be the same. And I did give a lot of credibility to this post then, because I think right here in the second paragraph, she even says, please keep in mind that everyone's magical abilities are different. Okay, so then she continues to list how you might have magical abilities. The reason I'm giving this even more credit, a little bit of credibility than I might have, I mean, I gave a little more interest. I want to say, it's not for me to judge if somebody's credible or not, but I gave a little more interest to this article, this blog post, was because it was written by Tess Whitehurst, and it mentions some of the books she's written. She's an author of several books, one of which I happen to have, called Magical Housekeeping. It says simple charms and practical tips for creating a harmonious home. Magical Housekeeping by Tess Whitehurst. Now, I don't know if this book is for you or not. I'm not exactly sure. To be honest, I'm not exactly sure why I have the book, because it's not exactly a kind of book that I would necessarily seek to buy. It's a fine book. It's a cute little book. I suspect, if I have to be honest, I suspect that I was buying some things from Amazon, and before I have Amazon Prime, but before I had Amazon Prime, you had to get $30 or whatever. You had to order $30 of things to get shipping for free. So I tend to, they see me coming and a lot of other people. So I would just find another little book that was another $10 or $15, whatever, and stick it in my basket in order to not pay for shipping. And then if I don't like the book, I can pass it along to someone else. But it turns out it's quite a cute little book, and it has some good points. It's not an in-depth kind of a reading. It's a read. You can almost read it in just a day. It's just one of those, which is a really fun book. Fun kind of a book. But what I want to say about it is this first part of the book, perhaps, a third of the book, the first third of the book perhaps, is about things that we all need to know. Is her idea that if you are surrounded by clutter, you do not have a magical space. If you have clutter that is in your way, you cannot have a magical space. I really believe that. I really agree with that. Remember when I told you one of my, and also about cleaning, and basically, she talks about all of these things. Clutter, her first chapter is clutter clearing, second chapter cleaning, third chapter space clearing, fourth chapter harmonious positions. That has to do with feng shui and things like that. Okay. These are things that I've talked about a little bit in the past, which I really do believe in. I have showed you in our office when we were having all these financial issues, that my prosperity altar was full of things like, empty bottles of oil just still stuck there in the bowl with, cobweb dust stuck all over them, and just not being attentive. I have a water feature in there that I hadn't put any water in for a while, and it was all dry, and the rocks were a mess, and it was a mess. It was not a surprise to see that our finances were in a mess when we saw what a mess our prosperity altar had been in state of neglect, right? Okay, so it has some really good points in there, and I really loved that about this book. I thought that was really good, but she's not preachy. She's really not preachy. I'm probably being a little more preachy than she is in the book. But then it talks about empowerment, steps of empowerment, which is really good if you want to do things like she talks about the 3 secrets of empowerment being gesture, vocalization, and visualization or expectation, which has to do with spell work, right? Which is interesting. And then she talks about things being helping you in your magic, such as gemstones, other beings such as fairies or angels, plants, animals, sacred smoke and aromas of power, which would be incense, and some blessings and protection rituals, etc. So it's a cute little book if you want a really cute little read. That's her. And she's also written, which I cannot speak about, but she has like 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 more books since. So she's a pretty prolific writer, so it's working for her. So anyway, that was that. So anyway, back to my story. It caught my interest. I thought, okay, well, I'll give her a chance. And I was reading down here. Now, these are, remember, signs that you have inherent. I'm sorry that you're if you misinterpreting what I'm saying because I'm blabbering instead of speaking. Inherent magical abilities in you, within you, that you just have, that you're born with. And like I'm saying, I think that you develop them. But what I want to say is, I think they are different in every person. And the reason I wanted to bring this up, why I think they're different in every person, is I have had several people very recently, well, more than several people, message me and ask me, especially when they were looking at things like my tarot, some of my tarot videos that I've put up, that they say, you know, is it funny that I'm not interested in tarot at all? I just can't get interested in tarot. I think I should be, but I just don't. It doesn't resonate with me at all. No, that's not funny at all. We don't all have the same abilities, and we don't all have the same interests. We don't all have the same, energies that we resonate with. Okay, now in Tessa's list, her number 1 says she thinks you have inherent magic. I don't know why I can't say that word. Inherent magical abilities if you love magical, number 1, and metaphysical book and supply stores. Okay. Well, we're attracted. A lot of us are attracted to those stores. Most of us are attracted to those stores because those stores have things that we need, whatever it is. If we are tarot readers, they will have tarot decks. If we work with crystals, they will have crystals. If they have books that we want to find out about, or whatever, they have books. If they have, candles, we can maybe find our candles there. So there's a reason that we might be attracted to the shop, but that doesn't mean we have the same attractions. If I'm looking for, I have to say, I don't even really look, I'm a tarot reader, but I don't really usually look for decks. I just did put another deck on my wish list because I saw somebody do it and I have to have it. But normally, I stay with just a couple decks at a time. I only, right now I'm reading, like really three or four decks really right now that I even am offering for readings. So I'm not one of these people that buys tarot decks. I've done videos in the past about candles. I don't like scented candles. If they're trying to sell me scented candles, or try to sell me incense that has artificial perfumes in it, I can't use that. All right, so I wouldn't be attracted to that. We're not all attracted to the same thing. Okay. So that's a little bit, I think a lot of people might be attracted to it, even if they're not interested in magic. Number 2, you notice recurring patterns, like seeing 11:11 or 4:44 o'clock, or maybe you go through times when you see a hawk circling or have recurring dreams. She thinks these are messages through the spirit world, maybe, perhaps. They might be messages. But it also might be somebody that is really a visual person, really attracted to focusing in and looking around and seeing seeing, what the birds are doing, or seeing what is happening in the seasons or whatever. Okay, so that's somebody who's really in tune with being a visual person, really noticing clocks, or noticing, that you might see patterns. Okay, but if you are somebody who sees patterns or sees a clock, that might give you a clue about what your own magical abilities should be or will be. And that's what I'm going to talk to you next. Okay, so right now we're just talking about finding the magic, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about finding your own magic. Okay, but just let me go through this because I thought it might be interesting. Okay, number 3, you think about someone and then they contact you. Okay, that might be somebody who is, if you have those kind of abilities, you might be empathic, you might be somebody who is even a psychic, you might have somebody who would work as a psychic, or work as a, or astral travel, or those kind of things might be a big thing for you, rather than just, working with crystals, or working with, potions. Your magic, your interests might be lying in those areas. You're an intuitive cook, somebody who's an intuitive cook. Well, that's a really important thing for some people, but as it says, intuitive cooks sense what is needed to bring about the reality that you want in a recipe. Well, that's the truth. So maybe somebody who's an intuitive cook might be somebody who's really good at writing, making potions, or writing up, or recipes for incenses, or oils, or things like that. So that's, working with tinctures. Okay? But you see, that's a different kind of magic than it would take magic to work as a psychic or work as a medium. That's a completely different kind of a magic. It doesn't have to be one kind. There's not just one kind. Sensing what a cat is about to do, or knowing the tone of a voice used to get a wild animal to look at you, pay attention. Somebody who's in tune with animals, well, again, you don't have, the whole, it's a stereotype that a witch has to have a cat. There are a lot of witches who don't like cats, or are allergic to cats, or, don't even like animals. You do not have to like animals to be magical. Yeah. You're picky about color. I think that's funny because, yes, color, different shades of color even have, they made picky about color. Now, I could say, I'm picky about color. Green is my favorite color, but there's certain greens I don't like at all. I'm not really crazy about yellow, but certain kinds of yellow I really like. You can say those kind of things. I think we're all, if we're not colorblind, we have those kind of taste. We lean towards something that's dark, muddy tones, or bright tones, or neon tones, or whatever, primary tones. But it's funny because some of the pickiest people I know about color didn't have any magical inclinations at all. They just maybe were artistic people. Just because you're an artist doesn't mean you're magical. There's magic maybe in some art, but not in all art, okay? You can tell when somebody's lying. Again, that's sort of an empathic trait. And we already said not everybody's an empath. You don't have to be an empath to be a very powerful witch, or a good tarot reader, or they don't go hand in hand necessarily. You perceive plants as having personalities. You crave the feeling of walking barefoot in the grass, or prefer hiking or walking in nature. Yes, a lot of us do. We talk about being grounded all the time. I talk about it all the time, being out there. Right today I was out there with my bare feet on that ground in my garden. That's just in my lawn. That's just how I work in my garden. I'm very sad in the summer, if it gets too hot out there, to go in my bare feet, that I might burn the soles of my feet on the pavement, or even on the grass. Sometimes it gets so hot, because I like that connection that I feel, that grounding that I feel in the earth. But these are all very magical signs. This is a good way to observe, the magic around us and in us, and and saying there's magic in nature, there's magic in cooking. There can be magic in animals and colors and art and whatever, and people and communicating with spirits. There's all different kinds of magic around us. But what do we have to have in common? We have to have a desire, right? We have to have the desire to see it, to feel it, to believe it, to experience it, as should I say. We have to have that desire. And we have to be able to tune into what kind of magic is for us. Now, it doesn't mean that all for now and all time, if you are not interested in tarot, that you'll never be interested in tarot. Because maybe after watching all of my tarot videos that I might put out, I don't know how many I'll put out, I might be finished, but we'll see, that you might think, you know what? I know, I want to be a tarot reader now. I think I could do this now, and I'd love to be it. And now all of a sudden, you know, I've gone over the hump here. I was afraid, and now I'm willing to try. And so from now henceforth, I'm going to be a tarot reader. That's very possible. It happened to me. Remember, I said this years ago. I don't know if you ever have the inclination to look at some of my earlier videos, but I want to tell you, years and years ago, it is when I met Jackie for the first time. Not long after I met Jackie in person for the first time. Remember that she was my neighbor for years and years, and we didn't even know each other. But we finally did meet face to face, and one of the first things that we did, meeting face to face, was go to Quartzsite, Arizona, on a day trip with some other people in the car, and venture to a gem show in Arizona. And the reason I bring that up is I was not attached to crystals and stones at all. Very rarely. I mean, I had a little bit. You know, I had like a little bit. I don't know, I might have had a couple stones here and there, but I certainly wasn't walking around with bracelets on. I certainly didn't have crystals all over the place like I do now. I went and I did a lot of shopping, and I did a lot of, because there was a lot of bargains to be had, and we were in a frenzy of shopping, and I had some bags to fill, and you know, handling the crystals and handling some of these stones, I started to feel, very much the energies and the vibrations in the stone. I thought, this is curious. I really want to take this home, and I really want to work with this, right? Here, what do I have here? Smoky quartz. Oh, I don't know anything about a smoky quartz. Well, this is odd. And then I just started handling the smoky quartz, and there's something about the smoky quartz at that time that said, well, take me home with you and learn a little about what I have to offer you. So I did, and I came home with bags of stones. Oh, I don't know, you know, the equivalent of some of those Trader Joe's fabric bags. I don't know how many of those I had. Pretty full of all sizes of stones and crystals. And when I came in to talk to my husband, I just plopped those bags down on a chair in the sunroom where he was sitting. And I sat down and started telling him about my day and my experience. My cats went berserk around those bags of crystals. I noticed the magic that was happening in my sunroom, and my husband saw it too. These cats were just drawn to this energy in this bag like it was they were magnets. And then they were circling and circling, and one was going up over top of the bags. And you know, people think, well, that's a cat behavior. Well, that's not what my cats do. Normally, my cats don't normally bother with those things that get brought into the house. Unless it's something I absolutely don't want them to bother with, then they will. But, you know, most things, when I put bags of stuff down, they just go about their day. They don't notice how much. They were drawn to these crystals. That said to me, I need to look into the crystals. So I started studying crystals. That was years ago. And over the years, I've become very, very much more knowledgeable about them, and to the fact that I find that they help me with some of the problems. Wearing stones, gemstones, and some crystals, and working with them helped me with some of the problems that I was having in the past. So, somebody who wasn't at all attracted to crystals now is. That doesn't mean it makes me more of a witch. It doesn't mean it makes me more magical. It just means that I'm interested, and I'm going and looking in another field of study. There are still a lot of things that I don't have any really that much interest in. And I'm not likely to, you know, you can't do it all. You can't do it all. And you don't have to do it all. That's the point. You don't have to do it all. But the one thing that we have in common is paying attention. I paid attention to those crystals. I paid attention to those birds. I paid attention to what it feels like to put my feet in the ground when I'm in my garden. Okay? How about the moon? Are you attracted to the moon? Not everybody is. I know that's hard to believe. I have witch friends who are not at all attracted to the moon. They respect the moon, but they don't follow the phases of the moon at all. They don't celebrate Sabbaths or Esbats. Not all witches do. Not all people do. Right? It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't make you less. It does not make you less. Okay, I don't want to make too much of this. I don't want to talk too long. But now I talked about looking at the magic around you and how you might see it where there is magic. Some of these places it might give you a clue that maybe you have inclinations in certain ways. But how about looking for your power, your own personal power, your own personal magic, not just the magic is around us. Okay. I'm sure other people see, you know, birds around them. We're not the only people that see birds around them, but not all of us are attracted to trying to help that baby bird, that little fledgling. A lot of people would say, oh, just leave it, it'll be fine. Right? They wouldn't try to help it, or they wouldn't try to watch and see. They might just take it and take it back to the park and not watch and see what happened. The magic of what those crows were showing. You know, I wrote a blog post about the crows that just changed my life one day. On my birdandthecrone.com blog place. I don't know what you call it. You know, where I have my blog. That must be it. I just write these little tiny blurby posts. And I wrote one about the crows that just, when the crows had changed my life one day, just gave me a different perspective. Going up and watching how the crows watch from the top of these cypress trees out here just gave me a whole perspective on what was happening in my life right then. Being aware of the magic around you. Okay. Now, what about, to make a long story a little bit longer, a short story a little bit longer, a short video a little bit longer, what about what powers do you have? You know, developing the magic within you, developing that. Okay, after you assume, okay, that you are going to be the kind of person who walks with the power of earth in the garden, working in the garden or whatever. What are you going to do about that? How are you going to strengthen and use those powers? Okay? Looking at the patterns, if it is the garden or the earth powers, working with the earth, looking at the powers of Mother Nature, looking at the powers and patterns, the seasons, really look and see what is happening with the seasons and how does that affect you. This is part of what I'm about, is really walking with the wheel of the year, how it is affecting me, how I try to live. Okay. The example, this is another, I'm sorry to say, another author of another website, and I collect these things when I want to read later. And when I printed this out because I wanted to read it later, I don't have the mother page or whatever you call it, so I don't have any kind of an address on here, and I really apologize. I'm sorry about that, but because this person had some good points, but it talks about earth powers as being more creative or sexually and being sexual, having your sexuality heightened in the summertime, or your creativity heightened in the summertime, or letting go and cutting out what you do not want in the fall, dying in the dark and silence of winter, being reborn in the spring. Having those kind of feelings puts you in tune with the cycles of the year. Okay. The second one is wisdom. Wisdom. And it says, are people drawn to you to ask for help and to give them a lesson, or perhaps give them with a potion or a tincture or a ritual or something like that. They come to you when they have a problem. Well, the funny thing is, I'm a crone, and I think of myself as being pretty wise, and a lot of people call me wise, that I, have the wisdom of a crone that goes along with being a crone. But, honestly, not that many people do come to me and ask me my opinion. I don't think they really want my opinion. So I ask myself, I use the wisdom that is in me, somewhere inside me, and I call it forth. That's part of why I'm making these videos, because I'm really talking as much to myself as I'm talking to you, if that makes any sense. I'm trying to recall a lesson in my life that I need to relearn or learn again or recall. Talking through these things. Most of the answers are coming from within me. I think you understand what I'm saying. So, the wisdom that I find bubbling within my cauldron and bubbling, the ancient natural healing wisdom is within me. Is within me. But it is for me, mostly. I will share it if I have it. If anybody wants my opinion, I'm always happy to give my opinion. But I don't think that's why I'm recalling it. I think why I'm recalling it and sharing it is to share for myself. Nature, somebody who wants to work with nature, somebody who's very attuned to nature, living by water, living by the woods. Those two places particularly, according to this author, somebody being indicates that you're very, very in tune with nature. That you have to be, and what I mean, a lot of people are very happy living in, the suburbs in the middle of Phoenix, never going out on the trails, never going hiking, just, living in their air conditioning, don't even go in their yard. The people, they don't have a yard. A lot of people don't have a yard. They don't need a yard. They don't need to go to the beach. Oh, I don't like air. My mother, I made a joke about my mother, but it was really true. But my mother didn't like my mother didn't like the elements. They say, was your mother really, or maybe your mother a witch? Well, if my mother was a witch, she certainly wasn't a natural witch in tune with the elements, because my mother couldn't take the elements. She did not like, we would go on vacation every summer for 2 weeks. My father would take us all on vacation. For 2 weeks, we would drive, and we would always end up at an ocean. We always went along the shore. In those days, we lived in the east, so we went along the Atlantic Ocean somewhere, from Cape Cod to Florida, up and down, year after year. One couple of those places. My mother hated. She loved the vacation. We went every year, but she hated the beach. She hated sand. She hated the sun. She hated the wind, and she hated the water. What was left? What was left? But she loved the vacation. I don't know. But anyway, we laugh about that. Storms, not being afraid of storms. A lot of people love it, love storms and love, I'm not afraid. I'm a person who grew up with thunderstorms. We don't have them here, and very rarely we'll have one here. And I miss those. That's one thing I do miss. But some people are scared to death of them. Some people are scared to death of them. They're not nature witches. Those people are not. They're people that are going to sit inside, maybe communicating with spirits through mediumship, through psychic experiences, working with stones, working with cards perhaps, not digging in the garden. Do not feel you have to. Animals. You don't have to work with animals. But I'll tell you, if animals are always coming up in your life, if dogs follow you home, if birds are always landing in your yard, if cats are always giving birth to kittens out under your bush, okay, they're seeking you for a reason, and you need to pay attention to what they want, and they're telling you something. You need to pay attention to that. If that doesn't happen to you, it's not your problem. It's not your problem. You're free to go along and do whatever you do. You cast your runes or read your tea leaves or whatever it is you do. You don't have to worry about them, because they seek out who they need to seek out. Okay? Yes, witches and animals are aligned with in nature, and they speak the same energetic language, and they recognize each other, and this author says that, and that is absolutely true, but it is not true of every witch and every animal. You know? I can have an experience. I can have a really cool experience. You know, we've seen people, you know, have experiences with bear. Let's say a bear or something, and the bear just, for some reason, it has this gentle, magical behavior with a bear. Well, the next bear that comes along could eat you. You know, that's the point. It's not every witch and every animal. It's certain witches, certain animals. Okay. Again, with the moon's energies. It's not people's fault that they're not attracted to the moon or attached to the moon, because very many people live in areas where it's very hard to see the moon most of the time. You know, and see the stars most of the time. If you've never grown up or you've never spent time out in nature in a truly dark, dark sky, dark, dark night, absent from city lights, that you can really, really see the moon and see the stars and be under that and experience that, it's not your fault. Many people don't live in places like that, or they live in apartments or whatever. They live in, you know, cities where there's so much light and they just can't see it. Now, yes, the energies are still there and you can work with it. It doesn't mean you can't work with the moon. If you can't see it, it's still there. But you're not so much to be inclined to work with it if you don't notice it, if you don't see it. So don't be concerned about that. Identifying your power in different ways. Do you have more than a sneaking suspicion that your wishes come true, good or bad or whatever? Are you a little conscious and of your own power? Well, yeah, a lot of people say, oh my God, I'm afraid to wish for it. I'm afraid to think it. I don't want to think it because it will manifest. A lot of people feel that way. Perhaps being an old soul, being somebody who is an old soul, being here before, or been, you know, is conscious of being here before, or has feelings of being here before, has feelings of a knowledge that you've carried with you for forever, that you don't know where it came from. But not everybody has that, and not everybody's an old soul. I don't think everybody is. I think there's some new souls that are going to be old souls, but right now they're still new. Healing arts. Not everybody is inclined to the healing arts. Now, some people are inclined, and, you know, it doesn't mean that not everybody can learn. People can learn how to be, you know, to work with chakras and do those things. That's, you know, and be, you know, work with crystals, those kind of things. They can learn it. But some people have a natural power for that. I have a friend who, I'm sorry to say, just recently passed, and I believe today is her birthday. I'm not sure. I think today was her birthday. Sorry, she passed really suddenly. Anyway, who was a natural healer. A natural healer. She had hands that put out this heat. I can't even, if you've known anybody like that, it's just unbelievable to experience. I have knee problems. My husband and I both have knee problems. And she would hold her hand. This would be my knee. She would just sit and hold her hand like this far away from my, you know, several inches away from my hand. And just sit there. And my knee would be hot. It would be hot, radiate with the heat from her hand. It was so powerful. So powerful. She was able to do that. You know, that everybody can do that. That's something that is her personal power. Mm-hmm. Now you can learn to heal, but I mean, you see what I'm saying? That's her thing. She didn't read tarot cards. I don't think she identified really with being a witch. She might have. I kind of thought of her as being a witch, or having the potential she could have been a really good witch, I think, if she was so inclined. She never really seemed to, a lot of it care too much about it, but she did have that healing. So my point is that could have been what she was, that could have been her. See, that was her power. That was her personal power. Memories of past lives. Again, not everybody has that. It doesn't mean you weren't here before too. It just means that you don't remember it. Excuse me. Being an outsider, feeling that you really don't belong, or in the norm, that you feel that there's something special or secretive or sacred or whatever that only other magical people can see, and you like to be off with yourself a lot. Some of those people really are very magical, but you know, my point is, it's not everybody, again. And of course, drawn to crystals and things like that, or which we talked about, you don't have to. But if you really are drawn, if you find yourself drawn and can't help picking them up, and you will have to, then that's really a power. That's a place that you have power, and you should really work to develop that. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. If you have premonitions, or if you are just drawn to everything about, you know, magical things, pay attention to what it is that you're being drawn to. There's a reason that you're being drawn to certain things and not to others. That's where your personal powers lie. Not to say, again, that you can't develop other powers, but begin with what you know. Begin with what you want. Begin with where your passions are. Okay? When I came upon myself at whatever age and decided that I think a witch. I think I'm a witch. I think I'm a witch. I'm gonna continue my life identifying as this witch that I think I have been for a long time, you know, or becoming. I've been, at least been becoming, is what I said to myself, I think, at the time. And one of the first things that I said I was in tune with, what was it? Well, one thing was my tarot cards. My tarot cards that I had been carrying around since 1972. Since 1972. These are my tarot cards. Okay? I have had them. There is a reason in all the stuff that I've had in my 65 years. There's a reason that I would hold on to those tarot cards, and I kept getting them out, getting them out, getting them out. I'd put them away, I'd get them out, I'd put them away, get them out. You know, I just continued to be drawn to those cards over the years. I just embraced them. When I decided I was going to be this witch that I thought I was, the first thing that I went to, my tarot cards. What else did I go to? I went to my garden. I am a person who just feels I belong outside. I can be inside too, don't get me wrong. I can be the couch potato than anybody else can be. But my point is, if I had a choice, and I lived in Pennsylvania a lot of my life. We would go to a restaurant. If there was a possibility of eating out of doors at the restaurant, is there a patio? It could be raining, and as long as I could keep a place where I could not be wet, I prefer to eat outside. I prefer to be outside. I would be in a car in Pennsylvania in the middle of February. I would have my window down as much as I dare. The snow could be flying in my window. I would still have that air. I wanted the air. I wanted to feel the air. I would have my feet in the ground, barefoot, my whole life. And even when I lived in Ligonier, I had heavy socks when I had to take the trash out. Down the walk I go in my socks. That's how much I did not want to put on shoes. Connection to the earth. Connection to animals. Connection to animals. I've always been the one who, saw the stray kittens, found the lost dogs, had the birds falling out of the trees or whatever. That has happened to me my entire life, okay? So that is the magic in me that I developed first, because it is the most natural. It's the most natural. But it doesn't mean that I can't ever look into crystals, which I'm starting to. That I can't ever look into tea leaves, which I'm very interested in, which I can't ever look into Reiki healing or, you know, I don't know. I don't know. You know, potions or working with candle magic. Well, I do some, but you know what I mean? That's not my big thing. That's not my big thing. Okay? So, when we talk about finding the magic, I want to say to everybody, keep all of your eyes, your ears, and all of your senses open. Be aware. Look for patterns. Look for stuff around you. What is going on around you? If you don't see it, you can't know it. When you see it, if you see something happening around you all the time, if you're starting to see patterns that all the time you're noticing things and that are happening around you, there is a reason that that is happening. Pay attention to it. Because if you start paying attention to it, you're going to develop the magic that is within you to become the strongest magic it can be. It doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up in the morning and be this magical person. You've got to develop it. But you start somewhere that's familiar. You start somewhere where there's a good ground for it to grow, to take root and to grow. That's what I want to tell you today. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope I'm not turning you off with this alphabet ABC of paganism, because these videos are not just meant for my YouTube pagan friends, but they're meant for everybody, all of the people watching me here today. And I think I have subjects that are worthwhile to share with everybody, so I hope so. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to be back on here as soon as I possibly can. I'm Rebecca, and I wish you blessings.